Luke leaned back in his plush red throne of bones, examining us quietly as Remington told our story. One hand he flexed, knuckles popping, while the other's fingers tapped delicately on his crossed knee, the pupils of his vibrant green eyes narrowing into slits as he exhaled slow, angry breaths. By the time Remy was done, our body was stiff with tension. The hairs along my arm raised, my heart thudding, my legs preparing to flee should Lucifer even flinch in our direction. Remington. Luke sighed and ran his fingers through unruly hair. I know of this watcher. Do you realize what you have done? We cast our eyes down as shame filled us. Luke leaned forwards, eyes burning like hot embers, his forked tongue flicking out across a cruel smile. If only it had been his snake-impersonating bastard brother. He threw his head back and cackled like a madman. But you did right by coming to me. I may be able to help. He pulled a long, brilliant feather from thin air and smoke. I still have mine, he grinned. He stood and clapped a hand on our shoulder. It won't be easy getting out with that flesh suit you wear. Griffon. Luke stopped looking at me curiously. Excuse me? His name is Griffon. I felt Remy bristle. He goes where I go. As you wish. Luke shrugged his shoulders and headed out the door. The staircase swirled up before us, teeth jutting from an overfilled abysmal mouth. Chains groaned and rattled beside us. The giant silver wolf pulled against his restraints, trying to stand. Loki, the great beast growled, lowering his head to Luke. Not yet, old friend. Luke caressed the ancient pines. Slumber still beckons you. Fenrir chuffed and lowered himself to his belly once more. Up we climbed, higher and higher. The steep stairs seemed to go on forever. When we finally saw the soft light coming from the small door, I breathed a sigh of relief. My legs would have never made the ascent. I was thankful it was Remy who would choose our steps now. Luke pushed the small door open and peered out. You never let me have nice things, Persephone screeched somewhere beyond sight. Damn it, woman! I am the king of hell! You will treat me as such, and stop making the underworld a paradise! Hades roared right back. She let out a howl of anger and stomped her foot. Fine! How's this for your fucking paradise? I can only imagine that ethereal beauty sneered at her dark husband as the ground beneath him shook. Large vines ripped up from the floors, snatching the damned from their cages and chains. Thorns ripped at rotting flesh, eliciting screams of agony as the vines wove themselves together into walls of decay, dripping with thick, congealing blood. Foxglove and nightshade sprouting from eye sockets, cobra lilies pushing up and out of dislocated jaws, smothering final screams as their bulbs plumped in gorged throats. Fuck! My throat felt raw from the bile that rose. Luke turned, his eyes wild. Do not forget, while Persephone may be the beginning of life, she is queen of this hell, and as such, she is also the end, the last beautiful thing many ever see. It is a cruel irony that she plants her seeds in the souls of the damned. Where once was a magical garden filled with laughter and mischief, now stood a garden of death. Corpse flowers bloomed alongside the tall stalks of devil's tongue, filling her maze of strangler figs with the putrid smell of rotting flesh. Don't get too close. Luke raised his hand towards the wall of squirming vines, a thorny branch whipping out, reaching for him. They'll pull you in. Stay calm, Remy husked at me. Oh, I am calm. Luke looked curious. Griffon is scared. He's scared. He can see? We are one. It was my voice that spoke now. The great angel just looked at us bemused. Persephone's maze seemed much too large to fit the space we previously stood. The door out had only been a few mere yards away. Now it was hidden by her rage. Round and round we went, left, then right, backwards and forwards, careful to avoid the walls that tore at us, large fungi that spewed spores that wiggled and crawled, and the terrifying glittering webs that wove between the walls. Reaching the core of the labyrinth, we stopped to rest. In the center of the small clearing was a small and beautiful flower, pink and purple leaves striped with the burning yellow surrounding petals, the color of hellfires. Sweet Judas, what is that stench? Luke doubled over, gagging, while we barely contained our own retching. I wouldn't get too close. Hades smirked as he stepped from the shadows of a passage across from us. It's my favorite in her little garden of horrors. Pulling a soul from a pocket of his peacoat, he balanced the quivering purple light on his fingertips, giving it a spin. Watch. The purple soul screamed in abject horror as it was flung at the small, unassuming flower. Whip-like roots writhed and pulled. The larger bulbous body of the flower erupted from the ground, petals unfurled, revealing a crimson maw filled with lusting teeth. A single squeak, and the soul was lost to the depths of the stinking bloom. The tentacle-like roots wiped a single sticky trail of drool from the delicate trap, and once again buried themselves in the black earth. I thought I told you to leave. We are? Luke dragged the back of his hand across his mouth, smearing a trail of sick from his lips. Huh. Hades grunted and gestured lazily to the wall behind us. Just get out, sir. Nodding quickly at Luke, Hades stomped off. The creeping plant began to wiggle and flick, separating to reveal our much sought-after exit. The wasteland seemed hungry for us. The locusts were thicker. Fire poured from the skies. Bloodied waters raged. Livestock cried and howled around us, boils erupting with pus birthing new sores. Brother, Remington sounded tired, surveying the apocalypse surrounding us. Is there no other way out? You're the fool who came through the garden. He turned and stared at me. Me. His gaze pierced through Remington and locked onto my own. Something in his face softened, though I guess it couldn't be helped. He sighed and turned away, removing his jacket as he did so. Before the fabric could hit the hot sands, the skin of his back split. Downy spines pushed through his skin, followed by white-hot feathers trailed in blood. Mighty wings spread, birthing a light so great the plagues scattered. Follow in my steps. Anubis's shadow will not help you now. We trailed closely behind him, standing in what once was called his grace. It surrounded and burned us. The boils and scars that dotted our own flesh slowly began to heal. My mind ran rampant with questions and wonder. He was called the Morning Star for a reason. Remy's voice cooled my feverish thoughts. Oh, fuck. Luke's voice suddenly interrupted our private conversation. Before us stood Enderjit and Nur, hand in hand. Luke planted one hand on our chest, holding us back. Don't be fooled. Those are not. The girls shimmered like a mirage, and two demons stood towering before us. A growl ripped from our throat, feral and furious. You would dare wear their image? Our voices split and fought for dominance, crying out in rage. For the second time in our miserable joined life, we became truly one. Our hearts in madness merging, wrath boiling out of us. I didn't feel my skin rip this time. I relished in the pain as my claws and talons tore from my fingers and toes. Blood and saliva dripped from our sharp teeth and dribbled down our grinding jaw. Luke really did try to stop us. He knew not the depths of our shared agony. The twin Ifrits planted their feet in scorching earth, leaning down, preparing to meet our wrath. Their horns worn smooth from use, the fire from their mouths nowhere near as hot as the anger burning us up inside. Remington's shoulder collided with one of the ginn's torsos while my hand swung up, grasping its horn. We pulled it down, and I found my teeth sinking into its neck as we crashed and slid across the ground. Hot blood filled my mouth, spilling down my chest as the Ifrit howled in pain and struggled beneath us. We soon found ourselves flying through the air as the twin ripped us from its brother and pulled him to his feet. We hit the ground hard, air whooshing from our lungs, and clawed our way back to our feet. The Ifrit, infernal jinn of homicidal vengeance, exploded into twin sand cyclones, sucking up earth and plague along their path, hell-bent on destroying us. "Stop!" screamed Luke, but still they came at us. "I said stop!" Dead branches spiked the whirling, terrible winds. They would surely tear us to pieces, but still we stood, unafraid. Lucifer reared back his head, sucking in lungfuls of hot, rancid air. With a powerful thrust of his wings, the cyclones were blown back. He opened his mouth, jaw unhinging and dangling against his throat, and screamed. His scream was that of every soul ever damned. It shook the wasteland and was answered by a far-off howl. From his mouth spewed forth a pestilence of flies, swarming the Ifrit and blotting out the crimson skies. The air vibrated with the chorus of millions of angry wings. "I said stop!" His voice cut through the cacophony of hate and demanded silence. The flies cleared, leaving the two sullen jinn on their bloody knees. "We meant no harm," one breathed out, his fire less bright. "We only wished to meet them." "Them?" Luke pointed at us, fury boiling his voice. "We are born when an innocent is murdered. We are vengeance." Remy stood before them, our steps leaving weeping pitfalls behind us. "But how are we to avenge our mothers? We only wish to fight by your side." The bloody one looked at us with eyes that knew our sorrow. "How does one kill a god?" "Stand," Luke demanded. "We may have use for you." He reached both hands towards them, their sands spinning and shaping them into matching blades. We could feel the anger in the steel of the twin blades, whose hilts now pressed into our palms. Hate and rage that matched our own. We were one. Styx took one look at us and quietly moored his boat. "Dudes, wasn't really expecting you to be doing a jailbreak." "Charon, just row." "Love to, your highness. Or is it your darkness? But without the coinage, I got no oars." "Open my hilt." A small voice tickled my mind, and I pulled the blade from its sheath. "Whoa, whoa, dude!" Styx held up bony hands. "I thought we were bros, dude." "My hilt," came the voice again. "What are you doing?" rumbled Remy from my mouth. The hilt popped open, and a small roll of Styx's favorite incense fell into my hand. "Oh, wow, dude. I knew we were bros. I can work with that. You been to see Percy? She's an awesome lady, that chick." He snatched the incense and sniffed at it with the cavity that should have housed a nose. "You mind, your darkestness?" Luke rolled his eyes and snapped his fingers, the end of the incense lighting. "All aboard!" After we climbed in, Styx let out a huge puff of smoke, and the boat slid across the black glassy waters with ease, reaching the other side in record time. You might want to watch yourselves. Noober's in a hateful mood. Some white chick's been a twat about you all coming out. Sticks cautioned as we exited the boat. He disappeared into his haze, the water rippling the shore with his departure. Anubis stood waiting for us. Hateful was an understatement. Get out! Take your stinking live one and don't come back! He slammed his staff into the onyx floors, causing the souls to quiver in their sconces, bouncing blue light and casting strange, clawing shadows. We found ourselves standing in Midas's garden. Roses were wildly overgrown and bloomed no more. The tiny golden statue gone from its sanctuary. The shanty long ago collapsed. What happened? It was my voice that came from our mouth. Luke just looked around curiously. He cannot be here. A feminine voice that sounded of music bristled behind us. She was beautiful. Long white hair flowed around her moon-colored shoulders. Her eyes held the stars themselves, glittering with malice. The balance must be kept, she shouted and reached for us. Watcher, no! Luke's honeyed voice was cut off from our ears as my life began to swirl around me. My mother's sad eyes as she told Ender and I of our beloved father's death, the path Ender and I walked when Mother passed soon after, the beatings we received at the hands of cruel adults. Faster and faster it came, the day Remington rescued us from the raging, rain-soaked river, the deaths of our precious Ender and Nur. The fires, floods, and plagues rained down on us by the gods. They trampled us with their holy feet and laughed in glee at our prayers for help. Their torture and gas chambers demanding our absolute faith as they tested us. Murders and genocide, all in their names. She ripped her hand from my face, tears streaming down star-kissed cheeks. Has there never been balance? She gasped as though the air had been sucked from her lungs. She stared at her hands and wept. We watched as the Watcher changed before us. Silken tresses changed to black, eyes going dark as pitch. She looked at us and howled, "Never again! There must be balance!" The earth shook with her fury, and she was simply gone. It took a few days to find the town. Mamaroo and Kit had hidden it well. Large arches guarded every entrance. Strange shapes and tiny paper charms covered the worn wood. Luke traced his fingers over the carvings. "It's exquisite. I've never seen anything like it," he said. "Well, you wouldn't have, now would you?" A small rabbit impatiently tapped her large foot. "Who are you?" we asked. "Who am I? Who are you?" Mamaroo was suddenly before us, scratching his head with a foolish smile on his face. "Forgive me. I may have brought some friends. Come and see what you have created." The streets that only moments ago appeared dead and empty came alive with life as soon as we crossed under the arch. Beings of all shapes and sizes wandered about. "What is this?" Remington was mad. Luke looked around wide-eyed. "Well, when we put the arches up to keep out the unwelcome, it seems to act as a beacon to the abandoned and lost." Mamaroo straightened his shoulders and looked us in the eye, daring us to challenge him. A boy darted through the crowd of Forsaken. The bandana on his head glittered and seemed to move of its own accord, as though weaving and reweaving itself. He stopped and stared at Luke, a grin spreading across his face before he ducked down an alleyway. "He is protected. Few humans come here." "We named the street for you." Kit jumped down from the top of the arch where she'd been perched and smiled up at us hesitantly. "My way of apologizing for the, She gestured to the scars across our face. It is Griffin, right? Close enough, Luke laughed. I felt Remy laughing inside me. It mattered little. Something about this cursed town, now home to the weary and broken, but bursting with life, lifted my spirits. I felt my hand reach out and trace the letters of the sign standing just inside the arch, and chuckled to myself. Welcome to Godless, it read.